I'm on a plantation, sir.
Hey everybody, just a quick message from Bonkers Network. We would like to remind everybody that certain topics of discussion may not be comfortable for all listeners. Certain viewpoints may not reflect those of our partners, sponsors, affiliates, our hosts, or that of our guests. We would like to encourage everybody to keep a respectful and open climate of discussion for all topics, no matter how disturbing they may be. So viewer discretion is advised.
Discoveries mankind has ever experienced.
And that is why we bring you the Bald and Bonkers Show.
Baby, you can get on my boat and make it rock,
Under the sea.
Welcome, Under the Sea. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You'll notice, Dakota, I beat you and changed my name back. Come on, I've moved the computer closer to my hands now.
Oh, you're still looking like a freaking zombie. What? Oh, not.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined tonight by Dakota, and we're joined tonight by Sherry. How are both of you getting on? How's things?
Been alright. Dealing with the same move.
Busy.
Yeah, Dakota's moving into a bigger house, hopefully, and hopefully he'll have his new studio set up, and it'll be ready in 4 weeks?
Yeah. We're looking at right now. The house isn't going to be ready till the 16th. I got to be out of here by the 31st. So it sounds like I'm going to have to bite the bullet and stay with a family friend of mine who gets a little too honest when she drinks and a little something else, but we won't go there.
the joys with Dakota, the joys. Let's look at all these amazing people that's come into the chat tonight, and something that I would like to say tonight for everybody. Could you all please check the notification bells on this channel, Bald and Bonkers, Sherry's channel, and other channels through Bald and Bonkers Network, because YouTube have been the way they've been unclicking the little bells. On this channel, Bald and Bonkers. Can you hear my voice?
It's always eerie when you're doing a spiritual session and all of a sudden you hear your own voice come back at you.
I know that. It's weird that. It's weird. So everybody, please check that little bell. And thank you, Dobby Stock, about that. She was the one that told us about that. So who have we all got in there? Facebook user. Who's that?
That's Dobby's clone.
Oh, right. We've got DNTV. We've got PWI, Spiritual Investigators. Do you know, they're in our lives quite a lot. I don't know who that could possibly be, that PWI Spiritual Investigator. I see them about quite a lot now. If anybody in chat knows who that is, could you please tell me who that is?
We have a stalker, Chris. We have a stalker.
Hey.
And then we have Sherry. Did I not see somebody else? Did I not see who else did we have in there? We've got Raymond G. There you go. Welcome, Raymond.
Hey, yo, what up, G?
Yep. So tonight, guys, we've got a very special show planned. We've got the Titanic, obviously. What's that? Hello.
I didn't mean to hit that.
You didn't mean to hit that? Oh, you brought it up and then I went and waved. You know?
Yeah, waving like an idiot. All right.
Look at this. Think about it in this sense. The people in the podcast side can't see this. You know? So you're going to have to tune into this to see me going.
See, this is why the podcast episodes now go out a week later, so that way you have to come see us on the video.
Yes. I can hear the voices again. The voices! So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're discussing ghosts of the Titanic and the Titanic subject itself. So, who wants to go first? Dakota? What's your thoughts on the Titanic, my friend, before we get into the pictures that we've got?
You know, when it comes to a lot of the spiritual theories, the Titanic does raise a lot of questions. Granted, obviously, a very tragic event usually brings in some sort of hauntings. But there's also where there's been reports of seeing potential spirits under the water, as well as any museums that have artifacts from the Titanic wreckage experiencing some sort of activity. Certainly raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, there's the photos online of the hauntings that's been in museums is ridiculous. I mean, you just need to get into YouTube, for instance, and look up Haunted Museum Titanic artifacts. And people will think, oh, it's artifacts that's brought back for the Titanic. So it's like bags or shoes or plates. Spirits can attach themselves to these items. What do you think about this, Sherry?
Yeah, that is very true. A lot of so-called hauntings and stuff, especially with these sort of situations, a lot of the belongings that belong to these people on the ship, that their energy most definitely will be connected to that. And due to the very traumatic situation that they all went through as well, even more of a reason to be attached to their items. And for me, like, I'm a really, like, I've always found the story of the Titanic a very upsetting one, and I've watched the film God knows how many times, and it, you know, in my opinion, that there was a lot of things behind the Titanic that people didn't really know about. I've done quite a lot of research and stuff into the Titanic quite a few years back, and in my opinion, they already knew that the Titanic was sinkable. They just didn't imply to people that it was, you know. Yeah. And I mean, there were a number of things that they'd done while building it that went wrong, and they had to remend it. So it's a tragic story, and so many lives were lost, which is unnecessary.
See, that's the problem. The problem is now that the Titanic's not got long left. What they reckon, 15, 20 years, Dakota, before all that's left is like the engines and some remaining stuff that doesn't really rot.
Everything that's still under the water, you say that we could probably bring it up to the surface, but they have about 15, 20 years max just with erosion. But the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize, if you go to unearth or even bring something up from the water that's been under there for so long, the second it gets exposed to air, you may as well just turn it to dust.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said that, right? Because here is a picture of one of the museums, and this is some of the stuff that they've brought up from the wreck itself. What do you think of this, guys? You can see you've obviously got windows, you've got plates, you've got cups, you've got tiles. What's your thoughts on this, guys? Dakota?
Isn't that out of the museum in Belfast? That photo?
Yes. Yes.
It's like, I've been there.
Well, there you go. See, I was waiting to see if you would say anything. But obviously, see, they've actually put a ban on the Titanic now. People are not allowed to take stuff off of it. It's now highly illegal to salvage anything from the Titanic without...
It's become that fragile.
Yeah. Because one of the ROVs actually touched the roof of the Titanic and about it collapsed onto the second one. Because here's actually an interesting picture here.
Well, I'm not being funny.
When you go, Sherry?
I said I'm not being funny or nothing. Even though it's very fragile as well, it is a resting place of all of these people that lost their lives. You know what I mean? Yes. So why would you take their things and...
It's classed as a grave. It's classed as
It
a grave.
is.
I mean,
It's their
this
final resting place. That's where they lay to rest. That's where they ended. So
this photo is quite interesting, right? This is for the debris field, right? So when the ship was sinking, it broke in half. The front, the bow sunk, and then obviously the stern started to sink after that. And the debris field spread over a few miles. Now, I don't know what this is. Obviously, there's a shoe there and there's some clothing. The people ask me, they've asked me in the past, is there bodies, is there bones? There's no. The bones are gone now, guys. The bones have been eaten away by microbes. There's nothing left of bones, but it's still classed as a gravesite.
oh yeah.
I mean, looking at that, you've got a shoe. I mean, what is that? Is that like that is like a pair of trousers, isn't it? And a shoe. So it makes you wonder. Maybe was that a suitcase that maybe opened up when it was sinking? And their
It could
clothes.
very well be, if you think about it. All of the stuff that went down with the ship, and the compact of when the water was going into the ship, a lot of this stuff would have been disrupted, and things would have flew open, and everything would have been everywhere.
Well, it's actually quite interesting to see the stern. When it broke off, in the stern section there was a lot of freezer compartments which were sealed. So see, when it was about a mile deep, these all imploded and exploded, ripping parts off the ship.
Yeah.
And people have actually predicted there was dry sections inside that ship when that was going down. I don't know if anybody survived in it. No, for long, because obviously it imploded with the pressure. Because here's actually one of the debris fields. There's actually one of the boilers lying between the stern and the bow, which is quite interesting. I think you'll like this one, Dakota. What's your thoughts on that, Dakota?
Makes me wish I could actually swim to go see it for myself, to be honest.
I mean, this is what people don't realise. See that one boiler? I think there's 6 boilers in the Titanic. I can't be sure. I'd need to go and look. But you could park a double-decker bus inside that, and there would still be room for a family car. This is what people don't realise, how big that ship was in its time.
It was huge.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And this is what I was showing this to Sherry tonight before the live started, and you know a bit about this, Sherry, don't you? This picture here about the rich.
This is the area where the rich people would have sat and like talk between each other and things like that. This would have been where they would have sat as well when waiting to go into church, because there was a church area on the ship as well where they could go down to. This was where the rich people would mingle and communicate and talk, and this was also a place where they would learn their children how to be sophisticated. You would notice a lot of the children being learned how to sit straight and it's a very, very high classed area.
Oh yeah, that's where they sat and they had their whiskies and their champagnes and they sat there with their cigars.
They would have had their drinks and stuff there.
Yeah. I mean, the next photo I want to show you guys is quite an interesting photo. When the ship was starting to sink, there was special doors in the side of the ship that they had to open to allow to deploy life rafts. But what usually happens is when a ship's going to sail away again, they shut the doors, right? And no water gets in, but because the ship was sinking, they just did not care. They just left them open. And when the ship sunk, these get ripped off, and these are actually in museums. And there's been some strange stuff happened round about these, because I actually read an article on it. There's been like engineers, like it's weird. It's like you get an awful cold feeling for these doors. I'll show you them. This is one of the side doors to the side of the hull. You know, you would open it to put like a ladder out to climb down the side of the hull.
Yeah, it would have been around the areas of where the engines and stuff would have been.
The engines
around in that sort of area, but not right near the engine areas. And the thing is with these, with like Chris was saying, if they'd have shut the doors, like when they had the doors shut and everything, obviously the compact of the water hitting that door and opening that door is what made that ship sink so quickly. If the ship doors would have actually been left open, the water would have gradually gone in, which it would have took longer for the ship to sink. So they made the mistakes of not doing that, you know.
It's quite interesting you say that, Sherry, because they actually they got a scale model of the hull of the Titanic. And they done the first test that they put a wee holes along the side and they shut all the doors. And it took about 3 hours, max, round about then.
For it was 3 hours for the ship to go down.
Yeah. But if they'd left open the emergency doors into the secondary boiler rooms, the ship would have slowly flooded. Hence, it wouldn't have went down bow. It would have slowly went down. And they actually reckon it could have gave them an extra 2 hours. Have you ever heard about this, Dakota?
I've heard.
It would have.
Yeah. But obviously in the days they didn't have the computer technology we've had then that could predict when the ship would sink. Mm-hmm. This photo is quite dismal. Before we get into the ghosts and the hauntings and stuff, guys, a lot of people have always wondered what happened to the bodies. Obviously, people went down with the ship. We know that.
There's a lot of them that weren't found.
Yeah. There was people trapped. They couldn't get out. There was people that were never found because they sunk. They didn't have a life vest on. But the people that did get found, here is a picture of them getting picked up. As you can see there, that's them getting loaded. That's them getting taken off the ships onto the other ship. And here is a mass grave. Yeah, I don't know how many bodies they actually managed to recover. I think they recovered about 500, to be exact. Round about that.
A lot of bodies that that did not get found. I think it was between 500 and 600 bodies that were actually found and brought back, but there was a lot of them that were lost. And sadly, back in them days as well, the people with the money were the ones that they aimed to save more than, you know, there was on that ship there was a mix of people on there. You had your rich people on the top, and obviously you had your more poor people on the bottom. Now a lot of them got locked away in the bottom of the ship, and they couldn't get out. And you imagine being a mother having to put your children to bed and say go to sleep, it's okay, and knowing that none of them are going to wake up the next day. Like this is it, you know.
It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting because you say that this photo I'm about to show was a violin. Now this wasn't retrieved for the wreck. This was actually belonged to someone on the ship that survived, and this is actually in the museum too. And it didn't go down with the ship, but they actually salvaged that. That was obviously someone that carried it on board one of the life rafts. But that actually was sold not that long ago for nearly $2.5 million, round about that.
And the thing is when you look at it, and you look at the bag, I know, when you're looking at it, it looks a bit rugged in that, but that would, to me, in opinion, that would have belonged to somebody that was quite wealthy. So that might have been somebody that played the music for the rich people and on the ship that time, trying to keep people calm.
It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting you should say that. Yeah. Because this was found on the deck of the Titanic by one of the ROVs. Now they don't know how it got there. They don't know if it came out luggage. They don't know if someone was playing it when the ship was sinking. But they actually found this. Which what is that? What's that called again?
That is a clarinet.
Yeah, it's a clarinet. So was that being played when the ship was going down to keep everybody calm?
There was rumours that there was some of there was these certain people that would play for the rich people when they were having their meals and stuff like that. This would be the sort of thing that they would do. And it was rumoured that when this situation was going on, the band that actually done that did stand on the deck, were meant to have standed on the decks to play music to try and keep people calm.
That's right.
Because obviously everybody was frantic and didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Dakota, what's your thoughts on that?
It's certainly an interesting case, and with a lot of the newer computer tech, as you said, we're constantly trying to reanalyze the situation of what could have happened, what went so wrong. You also have to consider the concussive forces that would be behind the hull breaking on the Titanic. That could have also been loud enough to literally liquefy someone's insides if they were too close. So there's people on there that had absolutely no chance.
No.
Well, here's actually quite an interesting image. What do you think of this, Dakota? What's your thoughts on this one? Now, that anchor's the same size of a small bus. Small minivan. That's one of the main anchors. Quite impressive, isn't it?
The thing is it's a big ship, okay? And
yeah,
like an anchor of that size would have been quite heavy. You would have thought that with things like this, they would have removed things like this off the ship at the time to make it not as heavy. It was already a big ship as it was.
Well, two of them at the front and one at the back.
Yeah, so, you just imagine how much they weighed. That wouldn't have helped with anything either.
Well,
yeah,
they would. You know what I mean?
No.
And there wasn't enough boats on the ship. They weren't putting enough people on the boats. When I'd done the research, they said there could have been a lot more people in the boats. They weren't putting enough people in the boats.
That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. The reason they didn't have enough lifeboats is because they thought it made the ship look not as pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But that's ridiculous because they knew deep down that ship wasn't unsinkable. Yeah. They knew that if something happened, they're not going to be able to get all those people off.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this, Dakota?
No, it should be taken as a word of advice because for most dating situations nowadays, that just because it's pretty don't mean it's stable.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why the guy didn't get jail for this. I mean, let's take all the lifeboats off it because it doesn't make it look like a luxury liner.
I don't know. It's like living with that knowledge that you cost that many lives. There's practically nothing a person could do to punish that wouldn't make the guilt.
I don't think the guy that made the boat, I don't think he survived. I think he actually died as well. Him and the
architect survived. One of the architects that designed the ship, he survived. He dressed as a
but
woman.
the main guy that actually done it died. He did not survive. Mm-hmm. So it would have been the main guy that should have been jailed, but he died. He lost his life because of that. So
everybody will recognise this photo that I'm going to do now because they rebuilt it for the movie Titanic, and it's one of the most beautiful. In the Titanic now, all it's there is just a hole because it rotted away, but this was beautiful. I mean, see the workmanship that went into that.
This was known as the cockpit. This is where the rich people would have gone and dined, and this was also the area that they would have come down to the place where the church was as well. There was a dining area one side, and there was a church area the other side. So this is where all of the grand people in their beautiful frocks and that would come down to dine and things. And it's very famous in the film.
Well, here is what it looks like in the outside now. That's what it looks like now. And that we've got to remember that photo was 10 years ago, so it's probably even more worse what it looks like now.
You know, you look at the photo on the right, it could just be how the pixelation is sitting. Doesn't it kind of look like there's somebody staring back at you?
It does,
are you talking, is that the stare back? Are you talking about the one that's up right now? Or?
The photo that's up right now, look on the right. Near where the Baldwin Bonkers logo is.
Oh my God.
It almost looks like there's a face there.
Yeah.
It could just be the pixelation, but...
There is. Yeah, I can see...
There's also, I don't know if it's me, but there looks like there's one, like you've got like the Baldwin Bonker bit, and you've got the window. If you go behind the window, it looks like there's somebody standing inside that bit as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, that's an actual image. That's an actual image from the wreck for 2016. I mean,
to me, this looks like the area where the rich people would have been housed. This looks like their dormitories and their places that they would have stayed.
Well, that's the grand staircase. In that room, there was a door just down for it, and it taken you into the grand staircase. It taken you actually inside. That's on top of that. There would have been a round glass dome in the top of that. But that is actually what's left of the grand staircase. That is so weird, because that does look like somebody's face. What does the people in the chat think? That's actually
to me that doesn't look like the grand staircase because of all the windows. It looks like the dormitories.
I'll show you. Right, wait a minute.
The more I'm looking at it, I swear I see faces out of all those windows now.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot.
Let me show you. Here's the staircase. Right, you see how you've got the. Let me switch back.
If you look at that staircase, where do you see the mirrors and the windows?
No, you're not getting me right. You see how you're right? That clock's facing towards the bow. Okay?
Yeah.
The clock is facing the bow. So as you walk up to the left, there's a long line of windows in the left. And as you walk up to the right, there's a long line of windows. Right? But if you come back to this photo, obviously it doesn't show the entire thing, but just down a little bit, it's an entranceway that takes you into where the grand staircase would be. See where the big crack is? The big crack is basically in somewhere is where the grand staircase would begin.
Yeah, so this was the cockpit area then. So you've got the grand staircase there, but this would have been where they would have dined and.
Right, I'll show you exactly. I'll show you where we are. Right. See this ship. See the ship that's sinking. Like you see that photo I just showed you. See the second funnel before it goes under the water.
Yeah.
You see how there's little lights, and then you can see the glass dome next to it.
Yeah, that's where the staircase was.
That's that room. That's that room. That is that room. But that is so spooky, that isn't it? I mean, that's.
There's a lot of faces in it.
In fact, can we remove that logo, Dakota, to see if it allows anything else?
Yeah, we should be able to. Hold on. Just open back up. There you go. Actually,
there's definitely something stood there.
I'm going to move my mic.
All right. Let's see here.
That's actually quite strange. That's good catch, by the way. I never noticed that.
Oh, just a sec. Yeah, it's just. Now, granted, I'll say it. It's probably mostly the pixelation, but
yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I said, people that have actually done dives down there swear up and down they've seen people just going about like nothing ever happened.
That's it, yeah. See, that's quite weird because if you look about where the guy's head is, it looks like he's got like something round his neck, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A life jacket, maybe.
Yeah. Because for some of them, they would have died in the life jackets, and the life jackets didn't work if they got damaged, So
I don't. If you look at the very bottom of where you think his head is, you can. I don't know. It's as if he's got a set of feet. That is so strange.
There is definitely, it does look like Dakota said, it could be pixelation, but you can definitely make out that there is something there. There's several faces in that area. There's even one right to the back as well. You've got one that looks like it's like right up in the air and it's peering out of the dark area. Then you've got some weird face that's at the bottom of it. And then if you look to the left side, it looks like there's somebody peering there as well.
I went ahead and did what I could to adjust the brightness and contrast on the two main figures, but I don't know, man. That is freaky.
The right-hand window looks like there's someone screaming with their mouth open.
Well, they would be. You imagine what they were going through. They would be screaming. They're probably, a lot of it, to be honest, the Titanic would be a residual haunting. Okay, it would be replayed because it's something that happened to them. So you will be seeing them walking about doing their own thing, even though they're underwater. It's still going to be as if the ship was sailing on top of the water. You know what I mean? They're still going to go around doing what they would have done. So,
I mean, everybody that's been inside that ship. Now let's bear this in mind. You can't actually dive. A diver can't actually swim to it because it's so deep. The pressure's so deep. They've got to use ROVs. Yeah. But there has been strange things seen when these companies have been like maybe looking for like cutlery and plates and stuff like that. They've seen that's so weird. That's really spooky. Actually, I'm quite spooked with that.
I don't know. Just like I said, just happened to bring it up, and I was just looking on a bigger screen.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap! There's somebody's face right there.
There is definitely somebody's face there.
And why would it not be haunted? Just because it's underwater doesn't mean it's not going to be haunted. It will still be haunted.
Here's actually an interesting photo. Remember we showed you that room where the fireplace was, and it was in black and white, obviously, because that was the period then, black and white. Here's what the room looks like today underwater. Can you see any faces in this one, ladies and gentlemen? I can see one.
I see a few towards the right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
that clock stopped working as the water went all round about it.
Well, they didn't exactly think to keep things water resistant back then, now did they?
I mean, they had coal fires and ships and stuff like that upstairs, like fireplaces, and man, it's
that sort of with that sort, like obviously a lot of the rooms that the rich people and that had were really grand, but to me, like because of the size of that room and the way that it looks, I think that might have been like the captain's room or something, because the captain had a really special room.
Right, you ever seen the film where they're all sitting and the ship's sinking and the guy's sitting in front of the fireplace and he's having a whiskey and the water's starting to come in? See where the grand staircase is? The opposite wall for the grand staircase, that was the fireplace. That was the fireplace in the opposite wall.
Yeah, he was standing there with his hand on it and he was drinking. Yeah.
Here's actually a picture of the captain, Edward Smith.
Yeah.
Everyone knows him. He was the famous captain, obviously. Now, obviously, in the movies, he's seen dying inside the bridge of the ship. But in actual fact, in real life, he said he just went to his bed. Yeah. He said he just went to his room and shut the door.
He drank a bottle of whiskey and ended up surviving. Seriously.
What did they actually survive? I thought he died, didn't it?
No. He actually survived. Because he was drunk on whiskey, he didn't have hypothermia. He got very fucking lucky.
You should have done
I done some research on him, and they said that he died. He died in his bedroom. He was found in his bedroom.
Either we're having a Mandela effect, or I'm getting confused here.
The main captain of the ship, refused to leave the ship. He actually locked himself in his room, and he was registered as dead. He wasn't found.
There's his death there in Wikipedia.
Edward
John Smith died.
What am I thinking of then?
Died on the 15th of April, 1912, age 62. That's when the ship sunk. He went down with the ship to
room when he died.
Are you talking about the second in command?
There was another captain that was meant to have survived. The one that was under him. Yeah,
because the captain went down with the ship. I know that for a fact. The captain did.
Charles Yoffman. That's who I was thinking of. It was a baker who pretty much initially did the same thing. He went to his quarters, got drunk, and he actually ended up living to be rescued because he was drunk on whiskey. He actually managed to avoid hypothermia.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what I was thinking. My bad. My bad.
It's fine. It's fine. Here's actually an interesting photo of Lake Dakota. It's one of obviously all the survivors. Well, some of the survivors. Now, you can see how jammed that rowing boat was.
Yeah, like some of them were jammed, but there were some that weren't, and they could have had a lot more people. Like what they should have, like I believe they should have done as well, and they did show it in the film where they actually brought some of the boats together and fastened them together to try and get more people in. And they should have allowed more people to get off of the boat and things like that, but they weren't, and I don't know why.
Here we have New York State and New York itself. A mass burial site for the Titanic victims.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing I want to talk about with the ship. Now, I want your thoughts on this first, Dakota. There's two ships built. There was the Titanic and the Britannic, right? There's actually have you heard the conspiracy with the two of them?
That essentially the Titanic that was sailed out wasn't actually the Titanic. It was a failed model. Insurance claims and all that. A similar conspiracy theory can actually be found between the September 11th attacks. That there was a massive insurance claim taken out the day before the planes went in.
Well, what I find interesting is, right, because Sherry was talking about it earlier. See the Britannic. In the Titanic, there was a coal fire where they stored the coal, right? And what people don't realise is the steel in the Titanic was cast iron, and it was bolted. It was like studded together. And what happened was the coal fire got really, really hot, and then when it got super cool, it basically made the metal fragile.
Yeah, and brittle. Which means anything hitting it would have exploded it.
Yes.
And there'd been several problems with the ship when they were making it. There was one where it caught fire in an area of the ship. There was another area where it actually started letting water in, so they had to remend that. So they already knew that there was those situations with that ship already before they even let it set sail.
But here's the interesting fact people don't realise. The Britannic was a complete replica of the Titanic.
You wouldn't have known
the Britannic was used in World War One. I will say that, but the Britannic was used in World War One. It was after what happened when World War One broke out. They changed the colour of it and they stripped the insides out and turned it into a hospital ship, right? But a lot of people think that the Britannic had major problems with it, right? And they think they swapped the names round about. So the ship that sunk was the Britannic, whereas the one that was the hospital ship was the Titanic. And it makes you wonder if that was the case, because my God, that would make an amazing film. What's your thoughts on that, Dakota?
I am familiar with the conspiracy. It wouldn't necessarily take much back then to swap the names.
No.
But nevertheless, you also got to remember there's also that story of, I think it was a nurse who worked on she initially worked on the Titanic, survived that, but then ended up working on two very similar ships that also sank within a span of a few years of each other.
See, there's a lot of stories out there why the ship sunk, right? There's one that's on the internet that's completely and utterly false. There's one story, and I don't know if you've heard it, where they said there was an Egyptian mummy aboard the Titanic, and it cursed the people that dug it up, and it cursed the people in the museum, and it was on the Titanic, and the Titanic sunk. This is completely and utterly made up. It's not true. It's not true, and it just shows you the tales that are out there about this ship. It was carrying gold, and it makes you wonder if that gold's still in that ship today, or it's been.
That ship would have been carrying a lot of valuable things because of some of the people that were confiding on that. There was royalty and all sorts on that ship, so there would have been a lot of things that would have been brought with them, and obviously, they would have brought things from the places that they were in. to go back over to America with. Like, there would have been cargo and stuff that people took to go over to America, you know. And the truth is the Titanic sunk because people were stupid enough to make people believe that it, you know, that it wasn't unsinkable. There was a lot of problems with the ship. They should have never let it set out in the first place. They should have made sure they got it sorted. They didn't. It's not that some mummy sunk it or it's cursed or anything like that. It's the fact that it was badly built, and that for that reason so many lives were lost. There was a lot of incompetence in it. Yeah. That ship. For a start, the lifeboat thing, that was ridiculous. It should have had twice the amount of lifeboats in it. And even at that, there was too many passengers on that board. They were jammed into the decks. They actually locked them in. Can you imagine being locked in like a hall-like room? The water up to your neck, and you cannot get out. The poor people did. They were all locked into the bottom of the decks. And they had very small rooms with lots of people in it. Like they'd have their big families in that room. And they shut off the gates. They locked the gates. Like it was rumoured that they did try to escape. Do you know why they did that? Do you know why they did that? Do you know why they did that? They locked the families down there, so as all the rich people could get the lifeboats first. Yeah, but that's what it was, because it's money. They want money, don't they? So they didn't care about the poor people. The poor people were kept underneath, because in them days, sadly, the money was more important than the ones that ain't got it. You know what I mean? So yeah. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, and no, but law before it's totally gone. Them families. Oh my! Do you imagine being those families and you're sitting on those beds with your children and you're cuddling them and kissing them for the last time because you know you're not going to get off of it. You just imagine what's going through your head, the fear and the fright. Yeah. And I'm not being funny, but drowning is the worst way to die. Oh yeah, it's the worst. I mean, the water was very cold. And they say it was like 1,000 knives hitting you. Like it'd be like 1,000 knives hitting you. Like it would have for a lot of them, it would have. Oh, what is that word? I can't think. You know, like where it would have paralysed you. You wouldn't have been able to move because of the coldness. You would have been shocked. So, look, here's an experiment that you can do, right? See the next time it's winter, right? Get a basin and fill it with full of cold water, right? And put it outside and wait till it's slightly frozen, but just thinly frozen. And put your hand in that and see how long you can suffer that for. And it'll be long. There's actually a thing in the museum. Did you see it when you were there, Dakota, at the museum? You can actually put your hand in and see how long you can suffer the coldness for before you lose the feeling in your hand. It's awful. It's sad. You'd imagine being these people, they couldn't get out from the gates, they couldn't get up to swim out, to get out, so they're stuck. They had to endure that pain. They couldn't do anything, they couldn't remove, they couldn't get out. So, you know, and for a lot of them, they would have died very quickly. They wouldn't. As Dobie Sock there says, babies and children frozen in their mother's arms. Yeah, there's like when I'd done some research and stuff, there was actually, this was like years back, so there was a lot more stuff to look at then, and there were actually pictures where they had like what looked like baby carcasses, with bones and stuff, like where they were being held. Here's actually an interesting thing, and what people don't realise: the ship was carrying cargo, but it was carrying racehorses. It was carrying animals. They were the first to die because they were in the hold at the front of the ship. Yeah. When that was pierced, I mean, that flooded really quickly. And a lot of people don't realise a lot of sailors died instantly too because they couldn't get out because the captain shut the doors. Yeah, like in the kilns where they were doing all of the engines and that, all of that was all shut down. Now, if they'd have like what Chris said as well, if they'd have actually kept all of those doors open, it wouldn't have gone down as quick, and they may have had more of a chance of getting out of those areas. You know what I mean? But the ship was doomed. Trapped in there. Yeah. And some of them are actually killed.
Yeah, the ship was definitely doomed. The ship was definitely doomed, right? There was nothing that could be saved. There was nothing that could save it. But what happened is, when they built the ship, they didn't do a very good job. Hey, Smith Family Paranormal, just in the chat there. They didn't do a very good job, because the bulkheads are meant to go all the way to the top, right? The first bulkhead went up, right? The second bulkhead went up. But then after that, bulkhead after bulkhead got lower and lower and lower. And that's what happened. The first bulkhead filled with water, and then it went over the top. And it filled, the second went up, then went over the top. And because the other ones were lower, it went really quickly. But they reckon if they'd let it slowly flood, the ship would have stayed, basically, it would have went down very, very slowly.
It would have been paralysed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been, but it wouldn't have broken half.
That's why it snapped in half, because of all of the pressure and where the water was coming in so quickly. The force of it snapped it. And they say that when the ship actually went back under the water, it actually attached back together going down. It actually attached as it hit the seabed, they're saying.
No, what happened is, right, when the ship was going under, I'm going to bring up that picture there, right? And this is actually quite interesting. There's that picture of the one with there it's there, right? Now, seeing the movie, when the ship started to sink and it got to that point, that actually just stopped. The water stopped coming in, and the reason for that is because the ship was airlocked. It's like, have you ever put a cup or a glass under the water, and there's like an air pocket inside it? That's what it was, right? You've got to remember, see where the water level is there. You've got to remember maybe 20 feet in front of that, all the decks below that was dry, right? So the thing was airlocked. But because if the hull hadn't snapped, it would have probably maybe stood up for another half an hour, 25 minutes. Right?
Yeah, because it did snap in half, and a part of the ship that was still above the water actually went right up in the air.
What happened?
So they're saying that when it sunk, when it actually went down, it reattached because of the force. It actually reattached.
What happened was that it was sheer weight, right? It was sheer weight, and it broke off, and it was actually attached, like you say, Sherry. It was attached.
Yeah.
You couldn't see it, right? But it was still attached. But because of the sheer weight pulling on this ship, it pulled it under and it ripped the hull clean off it. And that went down, and then like 2 miles. That's why see the wreck today. You've got the stern and the bow, and there's like a mile in between. There's a huge debris field. And it's honestly, you ever seen that program, Dakota, the one where drain the seas?
Yeah, I was on that one. Remember?
That's right. You were in the Loch Ness Monster. But it's God, as you say, Sherry. Can you imagine being locked in a room? The screams.
And they were. A lot of them were. It wasn't so much the rich people that were locked in the rooms. It was the poor people that were locked in their rooms. Like, not even so much that they were locked in the rooms. Everywhere down underneath, they shut all the gates. They shut everything so that nobody could get out. That's what happened.
Yeah.
They shut the gates.
Yeah. So Dakota, what's your thoughts on the Titanic? What's your thoughts about the sinking of the ship?
There's another thing we're also not really taking into consideration, and it's part of some of the latest simulations that I was talking about. The guy on lookout in the crow's nest. The guy whose job... No. The guy who was supposed to spot that iceberg.
Yeah.
He was... Based on the data they had, now mind you, a lot of these latest simulations are scary fucking accurate. They fully believe that there was a bit of a mirage type effect with the mist that caused the iceberg to look farther away than it actually was.
Yeah.
So they thought they had enough room to get around it. Obviously, as we know,
they didn't.
So nevertheless, it certainly means Titanic should be proved as a point. It doesn't matter how much you try to spin something in a positive light, all the good marketing in the world. The second you go put to the test, the second one little thing goes wrong, and you're not taking enough accountability in the building process to at least make the effort to prevent it, can cause catastrophic failure.
Yeah. It's like the ship that came to Titanic's rescue. The captain was in his bed, and the second in command went to wake him up and said, "Oh, they were getting an SOS for the Titanic," and he's like, "Oh, it'll be fine. Just keep going." And they'll be like, "No, we're getting an SOS. It's sinking." And he's like, eventually, an hour later, he went, "Oh, right, turn it round and let's go and get them." If he had acted quicker, it could
there
have
was a
saved
lot
more lives.
of stuff that happened.
I think there was
saved a lot more people.
It's not just that. I think there is things about the Titanic that's still secret to this day. I mean, it was meant to be carrying a certain type of cargo, and nobody knows what it was, because the government was actually interested in this cargo, which is strange. No one knows what it was. The second thing is, they actually reckoned, see if the Titanic hadn't tried to miss the iceberg and went head on, it would have survived. It would have been totally damaged and probably rot off, but it could have stayed afloat. No.
Yeah, but I guess at that time you're not really thinking that. You're seeing this huge thing in the middle of the water. The one thing that like most reaction would be trying to turn the ship to get away from it. You know what I mean? They probably didn't think about that at the time. And like Dakota said, to them it looked like the iceberg was a lot further away.
It did.
So, you know, when that's coming up on top of them, the natural instinct, turn the bloody ship. Turn it. That's what they were trying to do, you know what I mean? But it hit the side of the ship.
There you go. But it just shows you where an iceberg that looks like this wee thing sticking out but the water. But underneath the water there's this ginormous piece of ice. But it's a very interesting.
The iceberg that done it. It was underneath the water that done it. That's what broke the ship.
Well, actually, I'm quite pleased tonight. We're getting quite a lot of views on the old YouTube and on Facebook. It's quite good tonight, isn't it?
I think they like the topic though, because it is history, isn't it? It's a history of England and it's history of America, because it was coming from England and it was going to America. So
it was.
You know.
We'll be doing more shows like this, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be doing Alcatraz, which I think will be a very interesting subject.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We know that place is one of the most haunted locations in the planet. We're going to be doing ghost ships that have been found adrift, and ghost lighthouses and stuff like that. You know, people that just disappeared off the face of the earth. Dakota, would you like to say anything to anybody in the chat, or any news coming up?
Well, I will say this. We do have a lot of exciting shows, very exciting guests coming on. Some of our most popular guests are going to be making returns in the months to come. There's all sorts of new merch in the online store. We're going to, once I get this move settled, we are going to be picking back up the pace on the UFO documentary, which I just found out there may be somebody rather interesting. I will not say who, because I don't want to jinx it quite yet, who may be willing to help. I think that'd be kind of cool. Chris will probably get excited as me. I don't know if Sherry will get the reference to it. But nevertheless, lots of exciting things coming up. You're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah. Thank you, Scottish Outlook, as saying good show. Sherry, would you like to tell everybody in the chat where they can reach you and where they can find you?
Well, you can reach me on PWI Investigations, and you can also reach me out on PWI Otherworldly Investigations as well. You can go get me on Facebook under Sherry Brett. I've got channels and places there as well that you can come over to and support me on there. Just come and look for me on there, guys.
Do you have any shows? Do you have any shows planned this week, Sherry?
I have my shows that I have with DNTV, which are on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And then obviously I have the shows on Friday that I do with the Bold and Bonker show, which is my Lost Magics. So just tune in. So Wednesday's shows with DNTV is at 10:30. That's to do with paranormal and stuff like that. My Thursday shows is just the facts and stuff. That's at 6:30, and then my Sunday shows are either interviews or really cool stuff. So, that is at 7:30. And then obviously, as you know, my Lost Magic show on Friday with the Boulder Bonk lads is at 9:30.
What's the subject? What's the subject for this Friday?
This Friday, I'm actually going to be looking into a place that I actually went and investigated myself, which is known as Cold Christmas. And it's a place that has got a lot of history to do with children that died through a plague and the cold weather in the UK. It's not very far from me. So I'm going to be bringing some pictures and stuff up and talking to you about that, and maybe bringing up some video footage to show you guys, because I've got a few little video bits. So, yeah, it's Cold Christmas on Friday.
But look forward to that. On August, guys, we have some amazing guests coming. We have Barry Fitzgerald coming on the show again on the 6th of August, Saturday night. And then on the 7th of August, on Sunday night, we do have a special guest, don't we? We have Mike the Naked Bigfoot, and he's coming on to talk about zombies and voodoo and hoodoo, which I think that will be one of the top show. I think that will be a really big show, you know.
Mike's shows are always awesome.
But Mike is an awesome guy. Who else do we have planned for August, Dakota? Do we have any planned for Saturday? August, we've got, who's that you've got in there? Is it Nathan something?
Yes, Nathan Elwell. He does a lot of debunking videos on TikTok. Yeah, he's definitely somebody who's been interested in talking with us for a while. Let's see, who else? Trying to pull up a calendar real quick.
August 27th, we've got Iron City Paranormal again.
It's about time we had those two back.
Yep. We're nearly fully booked, guys, for all the shows coming up, you know. But we should do a Halloween show, you know. I think Dakota should go in an investigation, you know. We could sit in the control room and, you know, I'm only joking, Dakota.
See, I'm always the one that has to put in the hard work.
Where could we send you? Where could you send in the United States, ladies and gentlemen? Where do you want Dakota to go and do a video of in the United States? What about Bobby and Mackey's Music World? Would you not like to go there, Dakota?
I've always wanted to go check out Bobby Mackey's.
That'd be one hell of a place to go to.
Yeah.
That would.
Yeah, I think there's some amazing places in the United States, you know. But anyway, so what you guys doing for this week, Dakota, Sherry? What you doing this week? Anything interesting in real life? Not in the YouTube world?
Like I said on Wednesday, it'd be just my investigation stuff. But I am debating, and if I should just go out for the first time in 2 years and try and do an investigation at my church. Up the road, because I get a lot of activity there and the spirits know me really well there. So, yeah, I'm thinking about going there for an hour or so.
There's Dobie Sock. What is it? Have you thought about Paul? Is that there?
Sinclair for UFO missing person.
Paul Sinclair.
We can try it.
Sinclair.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get him on. We'll see if we can get him on. We'll do the magic. We'll get the magic of Dakota's. You know, alluring him.
On the day that you've got Barry coming on, I've got that show with Emma Louise as well. She's coming on to have an interview with me on the Lost Magics, but it's being done on Saturday, not Friday, because she can't do Friday.
Yeah.
All right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I hope you all have amazing things that happen. Please visit Sherry's channel. And also, if any gamers out there, could you please check out Dakota's gaming videos? Because Dakota does gaming videos, and they're actually very good. I like to watch them, you know. Dakota, will you put the links below for your gaming channel?
Oh, speak, motherfucker.
What? I was watching the other night.
How about just go over to the Ball and Bonkers TV network where all the videos for all of our stuff is running through.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All in one place, guys.
You can check out the podcast too, but you're better checking out the TV network because you get to see me, Dakota, and Sherry What more could anybody want?
I have posted out
Probably.
onto a few of my groups, so you can catch
Yeah.
whatever. So.
And plus, we've got Dakota's got the new store up. You know, with all the amazing items that are on there. Some that aren't there anymore after his accident. After his wee accident, he's deleting them. You know. But anyway, guys, take care, guys, and we'll see you next week.
And maybe Titanic victims be at peace.
Yes.
Because we have been talking about them. So,
yeah.
Lots of peace to them.
I don't want a visitation the night with an old captain with a big beard. Wait, Dakota.
Yeah, just know tonight we're all going to have wet dreams because we were in Titanic hauntings. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. There you go. But anyway, guys, take care, and we'll see you next week.
One! All right. Come